Weldon Long is living proof of what happens when you reject fear, refuse mediocrity, and pursue life with a no excuses attitude.
But we got to get refocused on the dreams of our youth. We've got to be willing to let them develop maybe a little bit differently than we thought. But they will develop if we stay focused, emotionally committed to them. We take consistent action and take responsibility for how we deal with life's challenges. And I promise you that you will achieve the dreams of your youth.
His message is simple: change your thinking, change your life. And this inspiring message has been resonating with people all over the country. Weldon is a frequent guest on national and local television programs, and his story has been featured in magazine and newspaper articles coast to coast, and is recently chronicled in his new best-selling biography, The Up Side of Fear. But the light of success he enjoys today was birthed in the darkness of prison.
It was May of 1987. The rent was late. I was married at the time, and just feeling a lot of pressure of having lost the business the year before. The IRS was calling, bill collectors were calling, and the rent was due. It was overdue. It was the 11th of the month, but I had a shotgun that my wife had purchased for me on our first wedding anniversary a couple of years before. And I went out to the pawn shops on East Colfax on the east side of Denver trying to pawn that shotgun, thinking I could get a few $100 together for the rent money. Well, as it turns out, and as I quickly learned, 10% of the gun's value is all that I could get in cash. And when I realized that, I started thinking about a plan B, about maybe using this gun to solve my money problem. Ended up picking up a hitchhiker. He and I spent a couple hours doing some drugs and drinking and raising hell. And before we knew it, we were talking about committing a robbery. And a few hours later, we were standing in the parking lot of a restaurant down in Colorado Springs, about an hour or so south of Denver. And we robbed two men at gunpoint that were walking out of a restaurant. Right in about the middle of the robbery, when things were kind of hitting their peak in terms of the insanity and the chaos and the yelling and the screaming, I kind of realized that I was in way over my head. And so I bolted back to my truck, and the guy had picked up hitchhiking. He bolted back too. We jumped in the truck, and we sped away from the scene. And all I could think was just get away from the scene. I couldn't believe what I had done. I knew I was in some serious trouble. And within a few moments, I began to notice a set of headlights in the rearview mirror. And instantaneously, somehow I knew that this was someone who had seen the robbery, and they were chasing us. And I decided instantly that I was going to surrender, but I didn't want to surrender because I didn't know if these guys behind had guns or what. So we just set on a northerly predictable course on Interstate 25 north towards Denver, drove about 45 miles an hour. And as I did this, I began to have an argument with the guy that I had picked up hitchhiking that I did this robbery with. And we're arguing back and forth. It's going crazy inside the cab of this truck. And he's got a loaded 12-gauge shotgun. He's stuck in my ribs, and he's like, "Come on, man, let's get the hell out of here. These guys are chasing us." And we came across kind of the ridge there coming into Castle Rock, and all I could see was blue and red lights flashing. And I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life to see a cop. And pulled over on the shoulder of the road. They asked us to step out and had me lay face down, flat, in the middle of I-25, right there in Castle Rock. And I remember thinking how humiliating and how pathetic my life was. At the same time, I remember thinking how well deserved, that I would be here in this public, interstate, surrounded by cops with guns trained on me. And cops picked us up, threw us in the back of some cruisers, brought us back down to Colorado Springs. And 6 months later, I got sentenced to 10 years in Department of Corrections for what I affectionately call my night out with Elliot. And that night out with Elliot began a cycle of, from 1987 until 2003, began a cycle of 13 years of prison. At last stretched, I did 7 years. But those were the most amazing 7 years of my life.
Now, as a keynote speaker, Weldon brings his incredible message of transformation to audiences all over the country.
If I could attract the things I fear in life, why couldn't I think about something else and attract that? And lo and behold, that's what I did. I set out to change my life, and I started with a piece of paper.
I had dropped out of high school in 9th grade. I wanted to be educated. So I wrote on that piece of paper, I am an educated man. I had abandoned my 3-year-old son, so I wrote in that piece of paper, I have an awesome relationship with my son. I envisioned having a beautiful home in the mountains of Colorado. I read a book by Wayne Dyer. He talked about Maui. I thought, wow, Maui would be a great place to go. So I wrote in that piece of paper, I'm going to Maui. I'm on the island of Maui.
And I wrote out on that piece of paper what a perfect life for me would look like. And I dreamed big. No holds barred. I decided I was never again going to think about the things I fear. Because here's the problem with fear. Fear is that anxiety, that stress, that worry, that debilitating, insidious feeling that something bad's going to happen. It's the gap between where we are right this moment and what we think might happen tomorrow or the next day or next year. Oh, I might lose that loved one. I might lose this house.
Dr. Stephen Covey, author of the classic book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said, "I was inspired and thrilled to meet Weldon Long. I've loved and endorsed his book, and I'm convinced that he has a very special mission in life."
Today I live an amazing life of prosperity and happiness and wealth and success and functional relationships and contribution and all these amazing things. This 3-time loser, ex-convict, high school dropout, was able to manifest massive transformation in my life because I changed the way I think.
With his book, The Up Side of Fear, Weldon chronicles his remarkable struggle from pain to promise. Long's story demonstrates that love can redeem even the most hopeless criminal, and that change is within reach for every person.
That's what the upside of fear is all about. Fear is an acronym. It's a simple 4-step process that anybody can use to create massive transformation in their lives. It's what I did. And the fear stands for focus, emotional commitment, action, and responsibility. You see, it's a simple process that we can all use. I mean, how else do you explain a guy like me, a high school dropout, alcoholic, drug addict, 3-time loser, never had anything in my life, never did an honorable thing in my life? How do you explain the transformation from that person to the life of wealth and prosperity and happiness that I have today? What changed? One thing changed, just one simple thing that changed everything. And that is the way I think. And I decided that I was going to make my imprisonment and my desperation and my poverty, I decided I was going to change my mindset and make my current situation, my current suffering, I was going to make it temporary. And that's what I did, because I changed my mindset. And when I changed the way I thought, I changed the way I acted. When I changed the way I acted, I got different results. Bada boom, next thing you know, I'm writing a book on Maui. Who knew? It's that simple.
Weldon Long now manages a multi-million-dollar company that was recently chosen by Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest-growing companies in America. He is a living testimony of the upside of fear and travels across the country teaching the redemptive truth: change your thinking, change your life.